It's Goku Sun DBZ and welcome back to a new top 10 list. This time I'm counting down, in my opinion, 10 of the top underrated comic book films. Now keep in mind this is my own personal opinion. You can stay tuned in a few weeks. Probably around the first week of November, I will be releasing top 10 overrated comic book films. Stay tuned for that as well. But first up, some honorable mentions. Also, all the films that are actually on the top 10 list are strictly films that got theatrical releases. So, excluding any film that didn't get theatrical. So, with that said, honorable mentions. Some of these may also be considered guilty pleasures for myself personally. So, with that said, honorable mentions, Shazam, which unfortunately is already getting overlooked, though I think it deserves way more respect than it's getting. Also, Into the Spider-Verse, superb film, honorable mention. Also honorable mention, the 2013 The Wolverine. Also, 2008's The Incredible Hulk. Avengers Age of Ultron. The original Ant-Man. Batman Beyond, Return of the Joker. So, with that said, coming in at number 10, as I said, some people may consider and may not consider some of these films underrated, but whatever. This is just from my perspective. But at number 10 is XMen First Class, which in my opinion is still the best X-Men film of all time. Like I said, everybody has their own personal opinion, definitely when it comes to things like the X-Men films or the MCU and stuff like that. But for me personally, X-Men First Class still holds a special place, and sadly, it always gets overlooked a lot of the times when people talk about great X-Men films. Which, that shouldn't be. Coming in at number 9 is a great film. Very much loyal to the comic book, and I loved the art style of the film, which is why it's number 9 on this list. Coming at number 9 is Sin City. Another criminally underrated comic book film that deserves a lot more respect than it tends to get. Yeah, it technically made its money back at the box office, but still, it's not huge, and you don't hear a lot of bigger reviewers or people talking about Sin City. Heck, I dare say A Dame to Kill For is another criminally underrated film, the sequel. But Sin City, from an artistic standpoint, is superb and far superior to many others, and I just love it. That looks like a living comic book. Coming in at number 8 is, of course, one of the first really dark and gritty comic book films, way before Zack Snyder even thought about doing a comic book movie. Coming at number 8 is, of course, a film that had tragedy, of course, unfortunately, where the lead actor died on set by an accident with a prop gun. Coming at number 8 is, released in 1994, The Crow, which is a really good film, and you call yourself a comic book fan or comic book movie fan, if you haven't seen The Crow, you need to do yourself a favor and watch The Crow. Coming in at number 7, another bit more grim and dark type comic book film. Not everything on here is superhero, which is why I said comic book films. But coming at number 7, released in 2005, a really good film, which, of course, would help inspire a group called Anonymous. And that is, coming at number 7, is the film V for Vendetta, which, of course, had Natalie Portman in the movie as well. But sadly, this film also gets overlooked a lot. I've noticed that with a lot of third-party comic book company films tend to get overlooked. and overshadowed by DC and Marvel stuff. Coming in at number 6, released in 2006, another unfortunately overlooked film, and I feel easily the most underrated film in definitely the Superman franchise. Coming at number 6, at least for me personally, of underrated films is Bryan Singer's Superman Returns. Which I love Superman Returns. I get it, some people find it boring or something and think it's too long. I will admit the pacing is not necessarily the greatest, but I love it. I love the actor who played Superman. I love the fact they used the John Williams score. It was very loyal to the Christopher Reeves era of Superman. That's a big deal to me, because to me, Christopher Reeves is the definitive Superman. But that's just me personally. With that said, I also liked Kevin Spacey's cartoonish version of Lex. I thought it was definitely way better than the DCEU version of Lex. Coming at number 5, some people would definitely disagree given this film did do $700 million plus at the box office, but it gets overlooked in the franchise. Unfortunately, it's overshadowed and it doesn't deserve it. I liked the little bit darker, more serious tone of the film, and also has, in my opinion, the best Stan Lee cameo of all time. Coming at number 5 is released in 2012. Mark Webb's The Amazing Spider-Man. And I love The Amazing Spider-Man, still to this day my favorite Spider-Man movie of all time. And yeah, it gets overshadowed by the Sam Raimi films, and especially it gets overshadowed by the MCU co-op done Tom Holland films. And Andrew Garfield, in my opinion, is the best Spider-Man, pure and simple. Not to mention, I loved the Lizard being the main bad guy in the film. Coming in at number 4, released in 2005, this film made about like 400 plus million at the box office. It was not a failure, but it's definitely overshadowed by its 2 sequels. And that is the beginning of what everyone would know as the Christopher Nolan trilogy. Coming at number 4, in my opinion, easily most underrated Batman film of all time. 4 is Batman Begins. My favorite Batman movie of all time, always has been. And it is definitely overshadowed, unfortunately, by The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. Good films, don't get me wrong, but to me, I much prefer Liam Neeson and his take on Ra's al Ghul. Not Ra's, Ra's. But whatever. Anyways, yeah, it's number 4 for me personally. Number 3 is, in my opinion, the most underrated of all the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. I love the tone of it. I like the fact that it actually has a good, solid villain, in my opinion. And, as well, the special effects are amazing and they are so trippy. And you can tell that films like Inception heavily influenced, and I love finally getting to do things from more the mystical side. And coming at number 3 for me personally, most underrated comic book films, Doctor Strange. I love Doctor Strange. It's probably my 3rd favorite MCU movie out of all 20 plus films. And yet it's easily, I feel, one of the most overlooked films in the series. Even though quality-wise, it's superb. Benedict Cumberbatch is amazing as Doctor Strange. Coming in at number 2, released in 1993, easily the greatest animated comic book movie of all time, in my opinion. Coming at number 2, a film that both Siskel and Ebert gave both thumbs up on, and easily, of course, has the greatest Joker of all time, in my opinion. Easily most overlooked Batman movie ever, and has quite the cult following. At number 2, in my opinion, most underrated comic book film, Batman, Mask of the Phantasm. So, coming in at number 1. Also, I'm going to give one last honorable mention. The 2003 Hellboy movie. Coming at number 1, in my opinion, the most underrated comic book film of all time. Hellboy 2, The Golden Army, in my opinion, is easily the most underrated comic book movie of all time. It's unfortunate this film only did like maybe under 200 million at the box office, which is unfortunate because this is easily Guillermo, hopefully I'm pronouncing it correctly, Guillermo del Toro, and the amazing monster designs in this movie are just great. The artistic style really shines through. I love the creature designs, and you can really tell that also a previous film he did really helped influence the creation in this movie of some of the creatures, of course, that being his great film, Pan's Labyrinth, which is another incredible film by Del Toro. But yeah, this film deserves way more praise than it gets. And let's not even acknowledge that crappy remake. But Ron Perlman, once again, in my opinion, this film definitely shines. I love the monster creatures. I love the evil dark elves. And the fact is, this movie was not based on any previous comic book material. It was completely original story by Del Toro himself, which I think also adds to the uniqueness and art style to this film. But yeah, in my opinion, this is the most underrated comic book film of all time. But what is your opinion? What film do you think is the most underrated? And as I said, a few weeks from now, I'll be doing top 10 overrated comic book films. And I'm sure people are not going to agree with my opinion on some of the movies, but oh well. I'm also working on 2 special top 5 lists involving DCEU. Top 5 best villains of the DCEU, top 5 best superheroes of the DCEU. So stay tuned for those lists in the future. I'll see you next time. Same YouTube time, same YouTube channel.